I heard my uncle's obituary before anyone knew he was dead and found out why he probably died while going through his stuff. Posted by u/Monalicia1. This was probably over 8 years ago. This'll be long, but I just wanted to get this out there. I worked at a sewing factory and I didn't have an iPod or a good phone, so I would just listen to the crappy local radio with my earbuds while I sewed and always paid attention when the obituaries came on. I live in a small town and was just bored and curious if I might know anyone. This particular day I wasn't paying much attention and took a bathroom break. When I was in the single bathroom I realized they were already announcing and paid attention. I caught the last name Worth and that the person had worked for NASA and RCA. I thought that was odd because that's pretty unique for someone around here, and my dad's uncle, who we called Uncle Dan, worked for those places a long time ago. Then I was trying to recall the name and I thought they said Daniel Worth. So then I felt shocked because I didn't know if my uncle's name was Daniel, and that was too much of a coincidence. When I got home I told my boyfriend that I thought my uncle died, and this doesn't have much to do with this, but it was an odd added fact that he had also gotten news that an uncle of his died that day. Anyway, I called my dad to ask if Uncle Dan was okay because I thought I heard his obituary. So he called around and I guess through the grapevine he heard that another uncle just talked to him the other day, so he called back and said he was fine. So 7 days later my dad called me, and when I answered he just said my name and I knew. Then I just started crying as he told me. Someone happened to stop by his house and noticed a strong odor and didn't get a response. He was a total hermit and was always home. Cops ended up finding him and they ended up estimating he had been dead for about 7 days. Just a little bit about him and how I felt about him for context. I only saw him a handful of times throughout my life, but he was my favorite uncle because he seemed so interesting and mysterious. He looked like a wizard with a long white beard and his house was half underground like a hobbit house. He never really left home and he would just sit and chain smoke and had long fingernails. I always thought he didn't seem sad, but his house was small and the walls and floor were concrete, like he was in a little dungeon. I really felt for him. My dad told me that a long time ago when my dad was growing up, Uncle Dan was married to a lady named Dorothy, Aunt Dottie, and they were the happiest, in love, outgoing couple. Sadly she ended up passing away, and that's when Uncle Dad made himself his little wizard house. So back to why I think he died. When my family and I were going through his stuff, I found a box of cassettes. I looked through them and found a tape with meditation written on it. I didn't say anything and just borrowed it to check out alone. When I listened to the tape, it was him talking to himself, saying you don't need your medication and just telling himself everything is fine. He was on a lot of medication, especially for his heart. The saddest/sweetest thing I ever heard was at the end of the tape. He sang a song to Dottie and it was so hauntingly beautiful. After all of this I felt really good. Like he was letting me know he now knew that he was always my favorite uncle by letting me know first that he had passed and letting me find the tape. Most of all I'm happy he's with his Dottie. Attic access. There. Not there. Dementia. Posted BYU Damagen. I have had a fun experience. My grandmother has dementia. My mother stays with her to make sure she's okay, but sometimes she goes out of town, or like now, is in the hospital. When this happened I step in to make sure she's okay. One day we were talking and she wanted to find her attic. We looked all over the house, inside and outside, in the carport and outside closets. No attic access. I asked my mom about it. She said that house does not have an attic. Mind you, she's lived in this house as a 20-something and now she knows what's what. I say okay, and don't think about it anymore. Here's the fun part. Yesterday my grandma and I were moving boxes around to make space in my mom's room. She needs a few updates due to her hospitalization. We start moving things around and Grandma says, why don't we just put some of this in the attic? Grandma, you and I walked around this whole house maybe a month ago looking for an attic access. You don't have an attic? Frustrated, she looks at me and says, yes I do, it's right there. And I shit you not, I look up and there it is, at the end of the hallway between her room and my mother's. I wish I would have taken a picture. I'm certain I'm going to go over there today and there will be no attic access. I messaged my mother in the hospital, Grandma's house doesn't have an attic, right? T replies, no attic. I recount the story. No fucking clue. I told her where it was, she insists there isn't one. How can this be right? Edit. Thank you guys for the comments, some of them I actually think you might be onto something. Now I'm sorry I haven't taken photos yet. I will. Life is currently throwing curveballs at me left and right. The first night it honestly didn't occur to me to take a photo. I just saw it and my grandma was irritated and we were hot and tired out. It was the end of the day and I just decided to leave well enough alone. I also was not expecting to run straight to Reddit and post about it, haha. I just was scrolling through the another morning and was like, oh, yeah, this crazy thing happened, I'll post it. I went the next day, but again phone was in my car. I'm very busy with IRS and bank paperwork and insurance issues. Someone with dementia is not exactly great at getting these things done all the way, and library books, and making sure the pool at her house is okay. She fiddles with the pump a lot, and just taking care of everyone's issues. My AC just went out in my own house. I have 3-year-old twins and a teenager. This is just something crazy that has happened. But I will be going over there again this afternoon, and I will be sure to take pictures for everyone. It wasn't there when I was there yesterday. So thank you all, and to the skeptics, it's cool. I'm not asking you to believe anything, just sharing a weird fucking thing that has happened. And I know houses have to have attics, that's why this is so fucking crazy, haha. And yes, her house was affected by a hurricane. Repairs were done. I have no idea what was done or what wasn't aside from her closing in the Lanai Outback. I haven't lived in town for 10 years. I moved away after school and only came back after my uncle passed away to help my mom out with grandma, and my husband also has family down here. So whatever. I don't know what's happened in her house. Swapped person, posted by u/Fluffy Forever. 3 years ago something happened that I still cannot explain. So my friend was bringing me my camera back. She and her family, the mother, the father and the brother, were invited to a celebration. My friend decided to give me the camera back on their way to the event, and we met at my parking lot. It was night, but they had the lights switched on in the car. As my friend was walking towards me, I looked into the car and clearly saw that her dad was in the driving seat and the brother was not with them. It felt strange as I thought all of them would go to the celebration. My friend was under time pressure, so she just gave me the camera and we said goodbye. The next time we met, I asked her how the evening was and why her brother did not come with them. She said that he did come with them and he was driving the car. I was shocked and said that it was her father. She answered that her father did not go at all to the event and it was just the three of them. I did not say anything more as she would think that I am crazy. I have to add that the father and brother do not look alike at all, as the father is bald and her brother not. I know that I was able to see the father in the driving seat as the lights were on, and I remember the moment very clearly as it was yesterday. Also, I am sure she would not lie to me as there was no need for it. She even showed me pictures of the night and her brother was with them. She was also surprised when I asked her, "Has anyone else experienced something like this?" I am sorry for any mistakes. English is not my native language. Stranger and his dog were frozen. Posted by u/Couch for Sale. This was about a month ago and I keep thinking back on it. I hope I can find some kind of explanation for this, as I've never experienced anything like it before or since. I, 21F, go for runs with my dog most nights when I get home from work. I've been at my parents' house since March because campus housing kicked us out due to the virus. It's a safe and chill area, so I've never had anything weird or concerning happen when we run at night. Until like a month ago in early June, we went for a run at 11 p.m. After a while we both started back at a walking pace to get a cool down, and I noticed a man walking a German Shepherd dog parallel to us on the opposite side of the street. After a moment of us walking parallel to each other, I looked again and they had both stopped. I first thought, okay, the dog probably stopped to pee. I kept walking, and my dog stopped to smell something, so I looked back at them again. I don't know how else to describe it other than they were frozen. Both the dog and the man were in the middle of taking a step, but they were completely still. As if the universe just hit pause as they were walking. It was late at night, but it was all pretty well lit with the street lights. I'm very certain that this wasn't the darkness playing tricks on my eyes. It was well lit enough for me to easily see that the guy was wearing a blue Nike brand hoodie, jeans, and sunglasses, all weird attire for a gross 90-degree night in South Texas, and that the dog had a colorful bedazzled leash. The decently strong breeze didn't move the guy's baggy hoodie or the dog's thick fur. I couldn't see his eyes because he was wearing sunglasses, at night? But the dog's eyes were forward and weren't blinking. It was an extremely unsettling stillness that I've never seen before. The closest thing I can compare it to is character animation failing in a video game, so it just ends up stuck in place. I had stood there for at least 2 to 3 minutes because I was able to start and finish a song in my playlist I had going when I first paused to look back at them. Neither of them budged an inch. Eventually I was too afraid to stay and see what happens, so we started walking again. I had such an unsettled and anxious feeling, and I kept looking back over my shoulder to see them still firmly in place. They didn't move for as long as I was able to see them when it back. I have never experienced something like this before or since then. I have never hallucinated, but I am on Wellbutrin for anxiety, ADHD, and depression. I suppose that my brain messing with me isn't completely impossible, but it's hard to believe because I've never seen anything unusual like this before. It was extremely creepy in a way that's hard to describe, big uncanny valley energy? And I haven't ran on that street at night since then. Loud thumping noises in house followed by duplicated objects a few days later. Posted by u/brismithyeti. This is my first post and I'll just say up front that I always look for normal and logical explanations before anything else, but this one has really been a challenge for me and is one of the reasons I have been researching this forum. It may not sound glitchy at first, but the second part seems like it could be. Here's my story and I'll break it up into a noise part and a objects part. There's a doctor version at the end. Noise. A couple of years ago, I was struggling with the worst bout of depression I've had since I was a teenager. My daughter is a teenager and she lives with me full time. This night was pretty normal and I don't remember anything unusual before going to bed, other than the fact that it was winter and there was a lot of freezing rain falling. However, once I was asleep I woke up to a very loud thumping noise at around 2:30 in the morning or so. I stayed awake with my eyes open in the dark and I heard it again and again in what seemed like a rhythmic pattern. I thought it was from my closet, but when I turned that direction I heard it from what sounded like the opposite direction. It was loud and in a full-on rhythm now, almost like a heartbeat. Again, I thought of music, but that didn't feel right and I felt my fear rising. I started to think that maybe someone was trying to break into my house or was pounding on the front door, but I wasn't sure. I was concerned enough that I turned on my light and got my gun from my safe. Again, the sound was in a full-on rhythm in the hallway. It was dark under my bedroom door, which was shut. I opened the door and quickly turned on the hall light and checked nearby rooms. Nope, nothing. Strangely, the sound had not really changed despite the fact that I changed locations in the house. I started to worry about my sanity on top of whatever threat there may or may not be. I checked on my daughter and woke her up. I asked if she heard the noise and she said yes, after a few moments. Well, at least I wasn't just hearing things. To speed the story up, we checked the living room, bathrooms, the entry doors, all locked, the door to the garage, locked. The sound was still there. I began to think it might have been the vent on the roof which had gone bad once before and made some weird sounds in the hallway, so I got up enough nerve to disable the alarm and check the backyard and look on the roof at my roof vents. Here's where it started to get a little too weird for me. The sound couldn't be heard outside. At all. Nothing was blowing or banging on the windows, my vents were silently spinning, but the noise was inside. I confirmed this by going back in the house and the noise was still there. I then went to the garage and didn't hear the noise. The doors were all shut as well. I came back in and we really tried to figure it out. Finally, the noise just kinda went away. We were very bothered, but after searching the house a few times again, we went to bed. It was difficult to get to sleep after that. Objects. Several days later, I was still a bit shaken up from the situation and had been researching what it could have been. I didn't have any answers that made sense. This one morning, I went into the living room to look for the remote to turn on the TV. I was annoyed because the battery cover was missing on it, but I turned on the TV and moved on. I then ran across the remote again in another room with a cover on. This was strange, so I went back to the living room and there was the coverless remote where I left it. Both remotes were identical Vizio TV remotes otherwise. Both worked on my TV and we didn't have any other Vizio devices in the house. This bothered me more than normal because of how close it happened to the noise, but I was okay and just tried to work through it in my head. I continued on with my day and I opened a kitchen drawer to get a jar opener. We have one that came from a pampered chef's party my ex had thrown, so we only had that one. Well, not anymore. There were two in the drawer. At this point, I started to have an existential crisis of sorts. This all really bothered me and I had my daughter verify that she saw both of each objects, which she did. To make things even stranger, a third object appeared to have duplicated, but I don't remember what it was. In fact, even almost right after it happened, I had trouble remembering what that object was every time I told the story or attempted to recall it. I just remember there was a third item and it freaked me out even more than the others. I still can't remember what it was no matter how hard I try. A few days later, I found out my ex-sister-in-law was missing a remote to her Vizio TV. Yep, it was missing a battery cover. I have no idea why it was at my house, but it did turn out to be hers. The other objects have never been claimed. I've never had any good explanations for these events, but I have one slight possibility for the noise. I had a friend say that her floor vents in her house flooded one time and she experienced that noise. It's not a bad explanation. I do have floor vents, and there was a lot of rain/freezing rain. However, it never happened since and I never saw water in the vents. TLDR, there was a loud, rhythmic thumping noise heard by two people throughout the house in the middle of the night that can't be explained and which couldn't be heard outside at all. A few days later, I ran across duplicates of 3 various objects in the house.
Thanks for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe for more videos.